It's time to mind your business with me, Jamillah Lodge. Tune in to find out how to mind your business with BEDC, special guest entrepreneurs, industry experts, and more. Brought to you by BEDC. Bermuda business starts here. Welcome to Mind Your Business.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, again. It's that time again.
Yes,
So,
it
of
is.
course, Deshun Simmons, you are the Communication and Development Officer, Assistant.
Yeah.
I know. You do all the things, so it doesn't seem like that. But today we're talking about the Summer Student Entrepreneurship Program, which you have been leading for the last 5 years,
5
has it been?
years,
Can
yeah.
you believe
I
it?
know.
5 years.
5 cohorts.
Oh my goodness. Which is a good thing because that means that we're turning out the future entrepreneurs of Bermuda.
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about the program. But before that, just remind people what you do and
Yes.
how you support BDC and its stakeholders.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm the Assistant Communication and Development Officer. So basically, I assist the whole unit in anything front-facing of BEDC. And then also, which is relatively new to my role, is also leading the Buy Bermuda virtual marketplace that we have, where people can list their products and services free of charge for now. So that way they're able to take payments online. Supporting with our events, our workshops, and then, like you said, the lead for the Summer Student Entrepreneur Program for the last 5 years.
Yes.
The grades are popping.
All right. So Summer Student Entrepreneurship Program. What is it and why should people care?
Yeah, so it's an 8-week program. Basically, it's us trying to support young entrepreneurs to maybe take that business idea to that next level, or maybe they've already started a business and just need that additional support. So in that first 2 weeks, what we do is we do hands-on training. So they'll come here at our Northeast Hamilton incubator. In that first week, they'll learn about the Ice House program, and then in that following week, it's more of a hands-on marketing, financials. A couple years ago, I introduced how to use AI to help your business, right?
Okay.
And then the next 6 weeks is really just them just out there promoting their business, their services, whatever it is, and just really just making money. And then they still check in with us to make sure that they're hitting the goals that they want, or maybe something's not really going the way that they anticipated. So how could they pivot? How could we help?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the Ice House program. For those who don't know, can you talk a little bit about what that is and why it's important for them to go through that first?
Yeah, so it's really about trying to give them an entrepreneurial mindset. So a lot of times, and not just young entrepreneurs, we also do this program for adults, but it's really just trying to teach them the entrepreneurial mindset of what it takes to be an entrepreneur, the tenacity, the perseverance that comes with it. Because a lot of times people are really good at what they're good at. Like, I'm really good at making candles, but how do I turn that into a business, or how do I start making money from that? So it's really just trying to teach them new ways to think. And then also what we find sometimes at the end of this program is that they still have that mindset, even if entrepreneurship is not really what they want to do. I think translating those skills into the real world is really what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and I think we're doing a great job at it. I mean, for me, when I think about entrepreneurship, I think about problem solvers, right? It's like we always complain about something, but what is the solution? How do you fix it? And I think this gives opportunity for young people to kind of start thinking like that.
Exactly.
It's not just about the problem, it's about the solution. And if you can make money from it, then why not?
And I think that's also just the root of what an entrepreneur is, right?
Yeah.
Like, you've seen a gap in the marketplace, you've seen a problem that you have, and then you go out there, you're like, well, I don't see a solution, so let me try to create that solution for myself. And then from there, then you ask your family, you ask your friends, and the next thing you know, you're starting making money, and you're like, I have a bank account and everything. So I think that's really what we're trying to stir in them. It's just that mindset of problem solving, like you said.
Okay. So from that perspective, it's 8 weeks and they go by fast. So from identifying who is going to be in the program, what would you say that they need to be considered for the program?
I would say a lot of times we look at the attempt at the application. So sometimes you might not have all the answers, right? Like, there might be questions on there that you haven't really thought about before. But what we really look at is you've taken the time to understand the question, kind of give a detailed answer. Don't just say, I don't have any competitors, and you sell soap, right? Like Marketplace and all those places are your competitors,
sells,
right?
Yeah.
So that's what we really want to see. Because sometimes what we see is students might not have like a complete application or an application that we might deem, okay, I will move on. But also what we do after that is we do Zoom interviews. And then from there, we actually see, oh, they really do know what they're talking about. They really do have that drive, that mindset, and will shift our perspective. So I think just really understanding the business at its core and just taking the time to go through the application. And don't hesitate to ChatGPT or,
Yes, why
or
not?
to ask
Yeah.
us or to ask people around you on how would you answer that question.
I think that's a good point because we launched the program and ChatGPT did not exist.
Did not.
And so from the standpoint of you as the project coordinator, when you're looking at applications, we only have a set amount of money, so
Exactly.
we can only take so many students. And so I would say to those who are considering applying for the program, think about that.
Yep.
And really, like you said, you're looking for someone who has given some thought to it.
Exactly.
Surely you've thought about how you're going to do this thing. And so that's kind of what we're looking for. For those that are listening, can you give an example of like a question that's on the application?
So it would be, who is your target demographic?
Right.
Who are your competitors? How do you plan on making money? Where are
Right.
you going to sell? So I think one of the funnier ones was a couple of years ago, Maya Ferber-Jacob, she was doing skincare.
Yes.
And in her application, she put mostly on Snapchat.
Yes.
And I'm like, how are you selling products on Snapchat? But it was just a simple, just posted it on my story.
Right.
People DM her and were like, I would like X amount of product. I would like this. And that, she did get accepted into the program.
Right.
And then from that, she sold 95% of her products through Snapchat.
And that's amazing.
That's amazing, right? So it's just, even just little things like that where we saw that she knew who her target demographic was, and that's where she was going to market, right?
So what happens if you have someone who isn't interested in entrepreneurship, but they are not they don't completely have their idea together? Like, do you take people like that? How can you support them even though they know they want to do this thing, but they're just not quite sure?
Well, I think going back, we just have to kind of juggle to see, one, we only have space for 10 students,
Yes.
right? So I think that if they're like 11th or 12th, unfortunately, we might not be able to take them in the full program, but what we have done in the past is make concessions and have them in our 2-week training program. So although they're not getting the financial support, although they're not getting the additional 6 weeks that the other 10 students have, I don't think we want to dissuade them from entrepreneurship or from an idea.
Newsflash. Our boss said 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if they're 16, right? But so we just don't want to dissuade students or young entrepreneurs from having that mindset.
Okay.
And even if they are accepted into the program, we also want to see that they understand their product. So even, for example, Marley Spriggs a couple of years ago, her idea was to start a book. Realistically, you're not going to be able to write a novel in 8 weeks, especially because she hadn't started yet.
Right.
So what she did, she just pivoted, and she's an avid reader and loves books and everything. So she created, she sold books. She sold some to us.
Yes.
She sold them, did really well. And then from that, she also started a book club. So I think we also want to see that kind of drive and everything. So even though this is not the original idea that you started with, or that's what you wanted to do, how can we move from here and how can you pivot?
And do it. And I think that speaks to what you're going to need in life in general, because it's not always that the thing that you think is going to sell is what people actually want to buy from you.
Exactly.
And I think that whole 2-week kind of exploration, validation phase is very important,
100%.
because it's that time where you actually hone in on what it is that you're going to do for the remaining 6 weeks
Exactly.
to actually make money.
Exactly.
So talk to me a little bit about what BEDC gives to the students for the program.
So outside of just the general support that we give them, so, a listening ear, we also give them $900 to start their business. So that's something that we give them early, as we want the students to, when they start, the first day, we want them to have, hopefully, their products or services, whatever that is. So we give them the $900, and that's to go towards, if you're landscaping, lawnmower, weed whacker, whatever it is that you need. Or in the past, we've also had some students who've done software development. So that's buying the necessary software licensing packages that they need. And then also, as I was alluding to, they do weekly check-ins. So in that 6-week period, every Friday, they'll meet with us. And as long as they're meeting their goals, their objectives, they also get an additional $100 on top of that. So ultimately, what we want to mimic is the workforce development program. So we don't want to dissuade students of, also entrepreneurs, you're not always going to make money,
Right.
right? And we don't want that to be a deciding factor. I never want to do entrepreneurship again. So there also is a guaranteed wage that they get. So because at the end of it, we recognize that this is the time that you've taken out of your summer to hopefully try to do something. So that at the end of it, they're going to be paid regardless.
Right, right. And the other thing that I like about it is whatever products that they purchase, software that they purchase, they get to keep.
Yes, exactly.
And so our goal is that we are creating the next group of entrepreneurs. So even though you started this business over the summer, if you continue the business, you actually have the capital items that you purchase to be able to do so.
Exactly.
And I've seen where people have, like you said, bought a lawnmower, still doing cutting lawns, have bought like somebody sold juices, right? And so they still did that. And then in an ideal scenario, I know for me, when I was in college, I did stuff on the side to make money. So this is something that you could still do as you move into the next phase of your life, whether it's education or not. Now, speaking about that, what is the age range?
So the age range initially when I started was 16 to 25.
Okay.
But what we started to see in like my second and third year was that there were students that were in middle school, so like 13-ish, that were really interested but had no avenue. So what we ended up doing now, the age range is 13 to 23. It does seem like quite a large gap, but I think it also works out in our favor because there's also a bit of mentorship that kind of happens within that cohort, because you're going to have those young entrepreneurs who are in their 20s or their late teens that have a different mindset than those that are younger. And I think they can equally learn from each other. And I think in the past we've seen that. We've seen where, like for example, Nico Bean and Marcus Rewan, they both collaborated, right? And I think at the time, Nico was 14 and then Marcus was in his late teens, early 20s. So I think there's also that bit of mentorship that we see. But ultimately what we wanted to achieve with that is that we wanted to show that you can be an entrepreneur at that age, and we want to give you that avenue and that opportunity to see that it is a viable career option.
And I would say that it's amazing to see,
really
especially when they're young like that. Remember when we had Aaron Lugo? And, I think he was 12 initially, but he was on point. And it's amazing to see. And so for us, I know that we don't ever want to be like, well, you're not the right age, so we're not. So it really does depend on how ready they are
100%.
and if they get it, because sometimes they're already doing it and they're like, okay, I just want to take it to the next level.
And I think ultimately what we also want to do is, like, from a societal perspective, you're very impressionable at 13, 14, 15. So we don't want to dissuade you, especially young black men, between that and be like, oh no, just wait 3 years. 3 years, a lot can happen in 3 years, right? So I think we also trying to meet them where they are and give them the opportunity and the exposure to different things. And entrepreneurship can be something that you can do.
So I'm going to ask you this, because you've been doing it for 5 years. So can you give me like one of your the highlights for you of a student or business that was formed that you were like kind of most proud of being a part of?
I think two. I think, like you said, Aaron Lugo. I think, he started already doing Rodney's the mowing. That was not a competition, but whatever that was. Super young, was like 4 foot nothing, came in, and we're just like, who is this little kid? And with a great support system of his parents, his mom and his dad and everything, he was really able to just hit the ground running. And, pitched in the youth pitch competition a couple years ago, and I think has still grown and continued his business. And I think the other one, the more recent one, would be Nico Bean of Flow by Nico. And seeing him, 14-year-old, come in with this idea, I think he placed second or third in the financial competition that we have within the program. Pitched in the Wave of Opportunity Pitch Competition, won Most Enterprising Youth Entrepreneur last year, and just continues to grow his business to diversify the products that he has. And we always see him at workshops, at events and everything. And I think he's one, I think, of the top because he's really trying to absorb as much information as he can. And, always reaches out to Dennis Carter and myself on, for example, he just redid his logo. So he messaged me, he was like, hey, which one do you think works best? So I think the fact that he's still reaching out, the fact that we're still giving him that support 3 years later, I think speaks a lot to the program, and I think also speaks a lot to him and where he wants his business to go.
And I think that's a good point because BDC, our whole job is around supporting entrepreneurs wherever they are, whatever age they are. So for me, it's very fulfilling to see a young person come through Summer Student Entrepreneurship Program and then go through all of our programs, go through the workshops, take advantage of it, because that's really what it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
Like, you're supposed to be able to reach out to us at any stage of your business and get support as long as we're able and willing to give it. And with him, that's a perfect example, I think, of that. So let's talk about dates and when the application is open and what do people need to do in order to apply.
So the application deadline is May 4th. So Sunday, May 4th, 11:59.
PM.
Yeah, PM, sorry. And then from there, we take about a week to go through all of the applications. At any time we can have between 30 to 40 applications, and we really want to take our time to go through them. The following week, what we'll do is set up interviews so that we can get a better understanding of, is this program right for you? How can we best support you? And then from there, it's a yes or no. And then we try to have them know by, I want to say it's like May 17th. So at least it gives them time, because we also recognize that it's end of year exams. There's a lot of things that they need to start doing. But also, this is probably around the same time that they're reaching out for jobs. So this is basically a full-time job. So if you have a full-time job, unfortunately, we won't be able to place you into the program. So we also want to make sure that they have enough lead time between if they're accepted or not, and then the start of the program. And then the program starts June 30th.
Okay.
Monday, June 30th. Yep.
Okay. And 8 weeks through
8
there.
weeks. All the way up until August 21st, I want to say.
Okay. Before they start school again. And so you mentioned a little bit about a competitive component of the program. Can you expound on that?
Yeah, so we just wanted to have a little friendly competition. We don't want the students to focus on it too much, because we don't want them to be dissuaded if they don't make as much. Because I think also what people have to recognize is there's a difference between revenue and profit.
Yes.
So if your profit margins are higher than someone else, just because they made more than you doesn't mean they're making a lot of profit. But essentially, the top 3 students who have the top revenue in the program get $1,000, $750, and then $500 on top of what they've already made.
Right.
And like you alluded to earlier, we don't take anything. So if you've made $3,000 in a week, that is yours to keep. If you've made $8,000 at the end of the program, that's yours to keep. So just wanted to keep kind of a friendly competition going.
Yeah. To encourage people
exactly.
and
to encourage to get out and put in the legwork.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's important because, like you said, the idea is for every student to leave with something.
Exactly.
Right? But our goal is always that the students sell whatever it is that they're selling to the point where we don't need to subsidize what they're doing. Because if you can make $8,000, $10,000 in 8 weeks, then we are doing the right thing.
And we have seen that. We had one girl, her name escapes me for a second, but she was doing hair braiding. And she killed it. She did, I think, like 8,700 in the 6 weeks. And that's because she was staying busy. Like, she was submitting her things to me, and I'm just like, is that actually zero? Like, let me help you to start learning how to hair braid. But I think it's just one of those things where she knew her demographic, she had clientele already, and just really hit the ground running.
One of the examples that I remember is, I want to say it's probably one of the first or second cohorts, and there was this young man, and he just sold water at the beach. And he won. And so I'm saying that to say that the idea doesn't have to be this new, never heard of before. It was just the simple fact is he sold water to the tourists at the beach who were thirsty.
Exactly.
And there was no other option. And he actually won the additional prize for having the most revenue So I'm saying that to say to people who are listening, young people who are listening, it doesn't have to be some super latest, greatest new idea. It could be something as simple as that. The idea is that you are applying those entrepreneurial principles, right? The problem was there was people were thirsty.
Mm-hmm. And there was nobody selling water.
Nobody selling water. And his solution was to sell them water, and he won the competition for that. So I think that it's a great way for people to understand exactly what entrepreneurship is, how to apply those principles, how to change your mindset, and to take advantage of opportunities that exist.
Exactly. And I think just going back to my earlier point of knowing your target demographic, knowing your marketing, right? Like knowing it is, once you know all of that, nothing's going to really stop you.
Right.
Right? So
one of the things that you mentioned in the application is going to ask who your competitors are. And being in marketing, of course, one of my pet peeves is when people say, oh, I don't have any competitors. I'm like, it's great to think that about yourself and to know, but it is not true. And the reason I think we ask that question is really to understand if the individual understands, like what you just said, the market share, who you're actually going to be competing against. And it's okay to have competitors. You want to have competitors.
I think, I can't remember where I heard it, but I think it was one year at South by Southwest, and somebody said, do you know who Netflix's main competitor is? And, everyone's saying Prime and this and that. And they were like, no, sleep.
Yeah.
Because if you're asleep, you're not watching Netflix. And if you're not watching Netflix, the viewership is down.
Right.
And I think that's the way that we want people to think, right? Like, yes, you might sell this soap that is the greatest soap ever, but truthfully, you are competing with the grocery stores. You are competing with the convenience store. And I think that's the way that we want people to think. So just don't say I don't know or I don't have any. Just put a little bit of thought into it.
Please don't say that. Like you said, ask ChatGPT, but don't say you don't have any. The other thing that I think, once you are able to identify your competitor, it gives you an opportunity to hone in on what makes you different, right?
100%.
What makes you unique? Yeah, they're competing with you, but why is someone going to purchase what you're selling over what they're selling? And now you get to further refine why you should be doing what it is that you're doing. Yeah. So I think there's an opportunity there. A competitor is not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing because you can up your game. You could be selling the exact same thing, but because you have better service or because you're available longer hours can make the difference between whether I'm buying from you or them. And it's those little things and nuances that I think we are hoping to teach as we go through this program.
100%.
So, walk us through like a typical week in the program.
So, typical week, for the training program, the first 2 weeks, it's about 9:30 to 12.
Okay.
They have the opportunity to stay longer if they want to work on anything, but we have a set out curriculum. So week one will be entrepreneurial mindset. Sorry, not week one. Day one will be entrepreneurial mindset, the introduction to Ice House, and then they kind of go through the whole Ice House program that week. The following week, we normally start off with marketing, financials, who's normally done by either Kalina or Takesha that work here at the BEDC, so that they understand what a cash flow forecast is. So they understand how to build in a profit margin. Because I think a lot of times, going to financials, entrepreneurs in Bermuda price their products based on what they think people will buy it for versus the actual value of it. So just because you're like, oh yeah, I'm making a ton of money, but are you? Are you really though? So I think we really want to try to get them to understand that. And then Thursday and Friday is pitching, to learn how to pitch your business, how to pitch yourself, all of that. And that's done with Dante Hunt, our pitch guru over here. Don't tell him I said that.
I won't.
Over here at BEDC. And we really want to hone in on them to learn how to pitch. One, it builds confidence, but also it allows you to not ramble, right? You know, a lot of times people talk about how their business is for minutes at a time, and it's like, okay, thank you.
Your eyes start glazing over.
How can you do it 30 seconds or less, a minute or less? And then all of that prep helps them out for when we do the City Hall launch event that we normally do, which further gives them an opportunity to pitch and to gain confidence.
Now, you mentioned when they're doing the application, it will be ideal if they have a sense about where they want to sell their products. Why is that important?
I think it just goes back to understanding their target demographic. One, so we have a better sense of, okay, they see a gap in the market in this specific area. But also it gives us time so that if they want to sell at Work Long Bay or Horseshoe Bay, whatever that is, we as BDC support them by reaching out to the parks department or the health department or whatever that is and subsidize any cost that's associated with that. So it also gives us lead time to make sure that when they're ready to start selling in that the third week onwards to the eighth week is that they can just hit the ground running.
Okay, so talk a little bit more about how BDC supports them with actual locations and some of the things that you've done in the past and other ways in which they can get their products out there.
Yep. So in the past, we've done the Rubber Tree Market. I haven't, since I've started, I haven't had anyone do a beach or parks or anything like that. But I know before me, there were students, the one who was selling at the beach. So what we just try to advocate on their behalf. And 9 times out of 10, the parks department, whoever that is, will actually not even charge them or not even charge BDC, whatever that is, because they see the value in the entrepreneurs being there. But also we have space most times at Harbor Nights. So the Chamber of Commerce usually sponsors a spot for the students to be there. And then also City Hall normally waives the vending fees at the City Hall launch event that we do. But basically anywhere that the students legally, that they would like to sell, not just popping up in someone's random yard, but just any way that we can help them, we will try to do that for them.
We've also had space at Washington Mall, too.
Yes, we have. I did forget that.
Yeah, where we have, it's like a SSEP store. And so each student has like a little section. So that's also an option as well. But the key is that we leverage our contacts and connections to try and get the students or the young people in places so that they can sell their products.
And I think we'd be surprised on how open a lot of these entities are into helping young entrepreneurs, right? So it might be like, okay, what is the cost associated with that? Is it in BDC's budget to support? And the next thing, they're like, oh no, don't worry about it. We want to sponsor. So we want to big up those entities that actually support the young entrepreneurs.
Yeah. I would also like to give a plug for our Buy Bermuda website, and I'll let you expound. I'll take it away.
So Buy Bermuda is our online platform where entrepreneurs can essentially list their products or services for free on the website. So as of right now, there are no fees associated with it at all. The only thing that you have to do is be a registered BDC member. So all you have to do is, if you're not registered already, is just go to bdc.bn. In the top right corner, you'll see Become a Member, fill out all the application information, and then from there you get a BR number, and then that's what you would use to sign up for Buy Bermuda. So if you sell $100 worth of products, we give you $100 worth of products. So there's no transaction fees or costs associated with that. BDC absorbs that cost, because essentially what Buy Bermuda was created for was to lower the barrier of entry into the market so people can sell online, because we know in Bermuda things are not cheap. And I think when you're trying to test a product or test the market, a lot of those fees up front is very prohibitive, and I think dissuades people from wanting to start entrepreneurship. So we basically wanted to create that where people have that avenue so that they can test the products markets.
Yeah. And so for those young people who have actual products, and it also does services. You can do services. I think I remember one student had like a wellness kind of situation going on. We see it all, right? And so you're able to sign up on there. Doesn't cost any money, and start getting money into your bank account.
And we'll normally in that second week, once the students have gone through that ice house and we start kind of getting into the marketing of using Canva and ChatGPT and all of those things, we actually help them to build out their stores on Buy Bermuda, so that if you're at City Hall or you're at Harbor Nights and you're just like, oh man, I remember seeing that student, but I didn't have enough cash. Like, I can go on Buy Bermuda simply and just buy it from them.
Yes, and then we want you to stay on there so you can
shop
continue
everything else. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about some of the intangible successes, I guess, associated with the program. So yes, you can make money. Yes, you can have this capital item that you purchase with the money. But what are some of those intangible things that you've seen the students or the young people come away from having participated in the program?
I think, truthfully, just having a completely different mindset from when they came in. Like, a lot of times, and we always see it with the ones that say 3 words the whole first week.
Yes.
Where we're really trying to get them to talk, because we know that you know your business. And I think sometimes students get really scared. But I think even after that first week, you see a change. But at the 8th week, you're like, who is this?
Who is that person?
This is a new person in the program, right? And we've actually had parents come up to me and be like, thank you so much. Like, they've come out of their shell so much. And you see it. So I think That's a fulfilling part of it. But also just the mind shift change that they have. And you can see a bit of more pep in their step, even if they find that entrepreneurship isn't something that, that they want to continue right now. Almost 100% of our students say entrepreneurship is in their future. So I think that's ultimately what our aim, but also just taking those skills that they've learned over those 8 weeks and just applying it to whether it's school, whether it's university, whether it's work, whatever that is.
I would echo what you said. I mean, just seeing the confidence boost that some of the students get. Like I'm saying, you're like, what'd you say? What was your what was that?
You need a microphone.
And then they're presenting because at the end, at the graduation, there's always an opportunity for them to showcase their wares to whoever's there, and just hearing them speak about their products and the pitch competition is just amazing. Okay, so let's, believe it or not, we're like at the end.
Unfortunately.
I know you can talk about this forever, but let's just remind those who are listening when the application date, when the program starts, and what they need to do next.
Yep. So just go to bdc.pm or our socials. We normally have links in our bios, whatever that is. bdc.pm. At the top, you'll see courses and events. You'll see the Summer Student Entrepreneur Program. Just have a read through. Send it to your kids, your grandkids, nieces, nephews, whatever that is. I think ultimately we're trying to capture a wide net. Even if you've seen a bit of entrepreneurial spirit in them, tell them to apply, right? If it's not this year, it could be next year. It could be the training program, whatever that is. But just have a read through the application. The deadline is May 4th, not May 5th, May 4th at 11:59 p.m. And then the start date is June 30th.
Okay. Well, hopefully we're going to get to our 15 because it's 15 this
15
year.
15 this year, okay.
Surprise! But I think the idea behind that is this: we just want more young people to have access and to experience it. So we're putting more budget towards this to give them the opportunity to do that. So thank you, Deshun.
Thank you.
Thank you for minding your business with us. And remember, if you don't mind your business,
who will?
Thanks for tuning in to Mind Your Business with me, your host, Jamillah Lodge. Tune in next week, Thursday at 4 p.m. because if you don't mind your business, who will? Mind Your Business is brought to you by BEDC. Bermuda Business starts here.